Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Sri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Jai Shri Sri Radha Govardhana Dhari Ki Jai. So today we're reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 16? 16? Yeah. Text 55 onwards. So we'll chant verse 55. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Avimrishta Videyamsha Duithani China. Virodamati Bhagna Krama Puna Ata Doshatina. Avimrishta Videyamsha Duithani China. Virodamati Bhagna Krama Puna Ata Doshatina. Avimrishta Videyamsha Duithani China. Virodamati Bhagna Krama Puna Ata Doshatina. Virudamati Bhagna Krama Puna Ata Doshatina. Anyone else like to chant? Tanachina. Virudamati Bhagna Krama Puna Ata Doshatina. Avimrishta Videyamsha. Unclean composition. Duidhani. In two places. Chinna. Symptoms. Virudamati, a contradictory conception. Bhagna Krama, broken order. Puna Atta, redundancy, also called Punar Ukti. Dosha, faults. Tina, 3. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this verse, the fault of Amrishta Videyamsha occurs twice, and the faults of Virudamati, Bhagnakrama, and Punarata occur once each. So there's no purport to these verses, the long string of verses. So we'll just keep reading the English translation by Srila Prabhupada. First I'll say some prayers, and then we might keep reading and just discuss any points that come up. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyan Anjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So text 56. The glorification of the Ganges, Mahatvam Gangayam, is the principal unknown subject matter in this verse, and the known subject matter is indicated by the word idam, which has been placed after the unknown. because you have placed the known subject at the end and that which is unknown at the beginning, the composition is faulty and the meaning of the words has become doubtful. So here, this section of Chaitanya Caritamrita Adi Lila is the youthful pastimes of the Lord when he was in his youthful, so older childhood, youthhood age. He had his own school at a very young age, and he would teach Sanskrit and logic, etc. And this great, as we've been reading in Chaitanya Caritamrita in the last few weekends, this great scholar, Keshava Kashmiri, came, and he was renowned scholar all over India, as one of the other speakers mentioned. Just like nowadays we have different sporting competitions, and people become very renowned as the greatest exponent of their particular sport. In these days, or in those days, very recently in the scope of human history, 500 years ago is very recent. But actually, there weren't necessarily people that were famous for conquering in sports, etc. But there were people famous for being able to conquer anybody in debate, in logic. So you can see it was a very enlightened type of society compared to now. It's people become very famous for being able to either with their brute strength, become good at some sport, or perhaps some particular skill in throwing something or catching something or hitting something or running or something. Or they become famous for being able to excite the baser emotions of the mass of people. But in this society, only very recent time, 500 years ago, the people will become famous for being able to reason and logic and explain, especially the Vedic scriptures, in a more in a better way than someone else. It was literally a competition of reasoning, competition of intellect. So this person, Keshava Kashmiri, had traveled all over India. It was called the Digvijay. Dig means the directions, just like you have up, down, north, south, east, west. These are the directions. So the Digvijay, Vijay means to conquer. So he'd conquered all directions, and he came to Navadvip. And Lord Chaitanya, as we've been hearing this verse, Nimai Pandit, he listened. And he debated with him in a very humble way. He said, you are so wonderful, you are so great. Please compose some verses in glorification of Mother Ganga, the Ganges. And this Keshava Kashmiri, as we've heard, he composed 100 verses just off the top of his head. Inconceivable, like Ramai Swami was saying. How long does it take us to learn a Sanskrit sloka? Right? One day, if we're lucky, right? I mean, when I was staying in the temple in Brisbane, we used to write up the slokas on the cards, and we'd be doing the pots in the kitchen. We'd have the card up there and remembering it. And by the end of one day, you sort of remember it. But generally, it takes some days or some weeks that it's really locked in there, and you have that sloka for life. So it's really inconceivable with our brain that takes so long to remember one sloka that someone could create 100 slokas just on the fly, just with perfect. And of course, we might think, oh yeah, that's okay. Like we could do that, like the tree is green, this tree I have seen, whatever, like some English thing. But Sanskrit poetry is another level. Like the Sanskrit, and then there's all the rules of Sandhi, how all the different syllables work together. If a word ends in this syllable, then that syllable, the actual change, you see the change, many slokas we see like that. So inconceivable that someone could create 100 slokas, just automatically on the fly. But this was the intellect of this Keshava Kashmiri, and so he did that. 100 slokas. So Lord Chaitanya very humbly said, well, in this verse number 64, in this particular verse, you said this, this, and this. And of course the Keshava Kashmiri couldn't believe that, first of all, Nimai Pandit could even remember. So you can imagine, we can't remember one sloka, but he remembered 100 and picked out one particular one out of that 100. Said, oh, this one. And not only he remembered it, he said, and this is the technical explanation that he's going through here, and he's starting in this verse from text 55. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself, as Nimai Pandit, is giving the faults and the good qualities. He's saying there's this fault of avimrishta vidayamsha occurs twice, and these other faults. So avimrishta vidayamsha means unclean composition. So just the composition is not completely perfect, the actual how the words are put together. And then this, Virudamati, a contradictory conception. There's some conception and then something that contradicts it is given at the same time. Bhagnakrama, a broken order, that things are put in the wrong order, and Punar Atta, redundancy. So here we can see Lord Chaitanya is talking about the order. The glorification of the Ganges is the principle unknown, and the known subject matter is indicated by the word idam, which has been placed after the unknown. We have a concept in the Vedas, which is all-pervading. We can see it in all the Vedas, especially all the Gayatri mantras. If anybody is chanting the second initiation mantras, Gayatri mantras, you'll see all of those mantras have this structure, what's called Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And Lord Chaitanya, he said, quoted by Krishnadas Kaviraj, in Chaitanya Caritamrita, that Lord Chaitanya said that the absolute truth, it needs to be understood in these three aspects. Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. So what do they mean? Does anyone want to say? What is Sambandha? Yep. Yeah, in that sense it is. Yeah, but in a more general sense, what does Sambandha mean? Yeah, relationship, or what else? Huh? Not the goal. No, the goal is one of the other three. That's the ultimate sense of it. You're going to the ultimate. So it means relationship, or in other words, it means identity. The identity, in other words, and the relationship. Like, what are you dealing with? What's the field? So if you had, the field of cows, the Sambandha is the cows. You have the cows, you have the bulls, they create new cows, you have the calf is nourishing. So who are the people? This is the cow, that's the calf, that's Sambandha, right? And then Sambandha, Abhideya. So what does Abhideya mean? Abhideya is the process of what you do, the activity. So you have the cow, you have the calf, and the process, the activity is the calf has to go and, usually that bang on the udder. Come on, Mum, I need some milk. So it's a process, and then they have to suck, get the milk out. That's the process, Abhideya, right? And what's Prayojana? Nandi? Yes, the result. Is that what you said before? A goal. That's the other word. Yeah, result or goal. Exactly. Yeah. So what's the goal in that relationship we set up? The goal is that the calf is nourished, right? Yeah. So that's a simple example. Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, and so therefore we can see this in everything. What is the situation? What are the identities? Who are the people? What is the relationship between them? Then some activity happens between those, and then some goal is got. That's why we are encouraged to do this, what we call Shastra Chakshush, right? Shastra Chakshush. What does that mean? What does Chakshush mean? No? Chakshush? Eyes, right? Eyes. Chakshu means eyes. And Shastra means the scripture, right? So we should see through the eyes of scripture, which means that we don't just come to the temple and we learn the books and everything like that, and then we go out and we just see the world the same way we did before. No, you'll see that the thoughtful devotees and those who are progressing, even from when people come very new, you'll see they have this idea that they want to see the world in the terms of the scriptures. And this is especially important to think about Sambandha, Abhidhamma, and Prayojana, because if our Sambandha, if the identities we're setting up within our mind, within our understanding, are very materialistic, then the activities will be very materialistic, and then the goal is very materialistic. So if we have the identities, the Sambandha, and the relationships as being, we are all just temporary material bodies, we have no eternal existence, it's just a spark in time, then the activities will be based on that. Oh, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to die anyway, just cause violence to other people, whatever, for your own purpose. And then the goal will be that, materialistic goal of some sense gratification, but spiritual death, going downwards. If we set up the Sambandha, the identities that we're eternal spirit souls, we're traveling through unlimited lifetimes, we here have a chance to reawaken our spiritual nature again through mantras, through process. Then the activities we do are those spiritual activities, and then the goal we get is a spiritual goal. And this is very important in terms of the more subtle outlook we have on life. If we take on the viewpoint of people who are very materialistic, very atheistic, or very saying that this body is everything, you're just a lump of matter, there's no actual meaning to anything like that. If we take on those, if we follow the activities or the conclusions of such people, such philosophies, the result we'll get is that. We'll get that result. We won't get the result of awakening our eternal spiritual nature. So here, Lord Caitanya is saying that you've given the principal unknown subject matter and the known subject matter, you've placed the known subject matter after the unknown subject matter. And he says, so this is text 57, because you have placed the known subject at the end and that which is unknown at the beginning, the composition is faulty and the meaning of the words has become doubtful. So, Sambandha, Abhidhamma, Prayojana, the Sambandha, it has to be, the known subject matter has to be given first. This is what's known. And then in relation to that, something else is interacting with it. Then we can know that other unknown thing in relation to the known thing. But we don't start with the unknown thing. And this Lord Caitanya is saying is a fault in this verse. Without first mentioning, text 58, without first mentioning what is known, one should not introduce the unknown. For that which has no solid basis can never be established anywhere. That which has no solid basis can never be established anywhere. Okay? So one should first understand what is known, then introduce the unknown. So this Lord Caitanya is giving his analysis of this part of the verse. Okay, so we'll go on, text 59. In the word Dvitiya Sri Lakshmir, the second all-opulent goddess of fortune, the quality of being a second Lakshmi is the unknown. In making this compound word, the meaning became secondary and the originally intended meaning was lost. I should put a caveat on this that as Krishnadas Kaviraj says, he will give to his realization. As a bird can fly in the sky, he gives that much realization. As a bird can fly in the sky, how high he can fly. And as much realization as one has, that much one can understand or explain the science of Godhead, right? So in this, I'm like a insect or something, just trying to get off the ground. So this is we're literally talking here about God himself using his logic and reasoning. So for us to enter into it is at best some sort of distant appreciation. It's not that we can really. So I just want to say that it's not like I certainly have any ability to understand this, but we're discussing it. By discussing it, we can all become elevated, hopefully. So here Lord Chaitanya is saying, in making this compound word, the meaning became secondary and the original intended meaning was lost. Because the word dvitiya, second, is the unknown, in its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost. So very subtle point here. That by saying it's a secondary Lakshmi, the original intended meaning, that equality with Lakshmi, that is the same as Lakshmi, not different from Lakshmi, is lost. Not only is there the fault of avimrishta vidyamsha, but there is also another fault which I shall point out to you. Kindly hear me with great attention. So you can just imagine the scene, this Keshava Kashmiri, great, to be like, I don't know, in the modern example, what's an example of someone who's just renowned for what they do? I think of sporting thing, because everything's about sport. Like the people who are sports or arts, right? Movie stars, pop stars, or Elon Musk. So there you go. So he's renowned as being able to do this and that. So you can imagine him on a big TV show somewhere, and he's expounding this and this and this and this and this, and then some like 12-year-old boy is sitting there saying, he's directly criticizing the thing he's saying. So I understand your logic about, recycle the electric car and this and that, but doesn't that mean that you're da-da-da-da? And I mean, this is such a incomplete example, because we're talking about Kali Yuga, like manufacturing total tamasic sort of a thing compared to this. But that's some idea of it, right? This Keshava Kashmiri was renowned all over India. And this little, like, Lord Chaitanya was something like 14 at the time. Something like that, 14, maybe 15 at this time. And he's saying, please, I'll point out another fault to you. Now, please just listen. Imagine the scene. Here is another great fault, text 62. You have arranged the word Bhavani Bhatri to your great satisfaction. So he's even pointing out that you are very proud of that, actually. You liked that. I can tell, he's saying to him. But this betrays the fault of contradiction. Now this is probably one of the most famous, out of this whole section, this particular fault is very famous, and even sometimes Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, when they talk about this pastime, they'll quote this particular Bhavani Bhatri, because it's a very clear example of the faults that Lord Chaitanya is pointing out. So he says, the word Bhavani means the wife of Lord Shiva, but when we mention her husband, one might conclude that she has another husband. So the actual word Bhavani means, Bhava means Lord Shiva, Bhavani is the wife of Lord Shiva, and Bharata means the husband of, right? Correct? So he's effectively saying the wife of that person's husband. Right? Now I was thinking about this in a simple example. Like, so imagine if you said, okay, John, I'm going to tell you about John. Okay, John, this is John. Or if I said to you, I'm going to tell you about the brother of John's sister. Now, if I said that, you would suddenly be thinking, oh, maybe John has like a sister who has a half-brother, or maybe there's another. You would naturally be thinking there's another person, right? If I said John's sister's brother, it also can be John, but I would just say John, right? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Yeah? Does it make sense? No? If I was going to talk about John, I'd just say, oh, John went to the shop. But if I said, John's sister's brother went to the shop, then naturally you're thinking, oh, then there must be another person. It's not John. So there's some jokes like that, right? Who's the sister of the brother of the uncle, when you have to work the whole thing out in your head. So this is what Lord Chaitanya is saying, is that by saying the wife, the husband, the wife. Sorry. I bewildered myself. There you go. I'm always bewildered. What did Prabhupada said? You're always in my, just occasionally a little glimmer of Krishna consciousness comes. So the wife of Lord Shiva's husband, the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva, then naturally people are thinking, maybe this person has another husband that's not Lord Shiva, right? Very, very subtle point. So text 64, it is contradictory to hear that Lord Shiva's wife has another husband. The use of such words in literature creates the fault called Viruddha Matikrit. So we see here from this original translation, text 55. Where is it? Viruddha Mati is a contradictory conception. Contradictory conception. Right? So Viruddha Matikrit. So this is a contradictory conception. Now, most of the people there would have thought, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. But Lord Chaitanya picked out the fault. There are many examples in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes where we are given these very higher levels of philosophy in a very practical way, and the subtle deficiencies in philosophy given by people who are not on the Shuddha Bhakta level of philosophy, they're explained in a very practical and often conversational way in Chaitanya Charitamrita. One example is there was one devotee called, I believe it's Bhagavan Acharya. I may be corrected, but I'm almost certain that Bhagavan Acharya was the name of this devotee. And he was a follower of Lord Nityananda, so he was predominantly in the relationship of cowherd boy. So this is somewhat relevant, and it's brought up later in the pastime. But the main point was that he had a relative, I think it was his cousin or brother, something like that, but he had come from Bengal and he'd composed some poetry in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. And it was the standard rule that before Lord Chaitanya would hear any presentation of philosophy or anything like that, it would have to be passed. It would have to be given the seal of approval by Swarup Damodar, who was his very confidential servant and associate. So this devotee from Bengal, this is in Puri, of course, came and gave the glorification. It was a glorification of Jagannath and Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya. And it went something along the lines of the Lord, the Supreme Lord, has come in two forms in Puri. He's come in the form of Jada, or dead wood, as a form of Lord Jagannath, and he's come as a moving or living form as Sri Chaitanya. More or less, this is what the poetry was saying. And it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can look this up, Antilila, that all of the other devotees there were very impressed. They thought it was very beautiful, wonderful poetry. But Swarup Damodar, he wasn't impressed. And he said, you've made a big great offense to Lord Jagannath, because Lord Jagannath is not dead wood. He is Satchidananda, the supreme, the eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. Spiritual form is a spiritual form. Just like we here, we're worshipping the divine forms of Sri Sri Radha Govardhana, Sri Krishna Balaram, Sri Giriraj Maharaj, and Sri Sri Gaura. We worship these divine forms, and we're not thinking that there are some kind of combination of earth, water, fire, air, ether. No, they're spiritual forms, and they can accept our spiritual offerings. And we read from Shastra, and if we perform the service according to the way of the great acharyas, then they will accept that offering. So they're not simply stone. Right? Stone doesn't accept offerings. Stone doesn't reciprocate emotion. But these forms of the Lord do. So Swarup Damodar said to him that you commit a great offense because you're saying that the body of Lord Jagannath is dead. Is a dead one. And also you're saying that the Lord is non-different as well. That the Lord is different. Lord Chaitanya is different, but they're actually, he is Krishna himself. So these are the two faults. He is Krishna himself. He's not different from Lord Jagannath. He is Krishna himself, coming in the mood of his devotee. What is that? Shri Radhara Bhavalana Chaitanya Vata Yoga Dhamma Nama Prema Kaila Prachar. So many verses are there and even in Srimad Bhagavatam, what is that? Krishnavanam Tvisha Krishnam Sangapangastra Parashadam Jagyai Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hi Sumedasa, that the Lord will come as his devotee. So Swarup Damodar was pointing out to him that this is not correct. And we can see many times in the Chaitanya Caritamrita, it's it is the gold standard. Well, it's a color gold as well. But it's the gold standard for Brahma Madhva, Gaudiya, Vaishnava. This is our Sampradaya, to understand the more subtle points of the philosophy. And you shouldn't think that it doesn't matter. Oh, what does it matter? Blah, blah, blah. We shouldn't think like that, because then we're thinking in a different way to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're thinking a different way to all our acharyas. We're thinking in a different way to Srila Prabhupada, who stayed up every night after like 1 hour's sleep to translate these books, to very carefully, every single word, to give that. This is we see how important these points of philosophy are. And just like Srila Prabhupada in the very early 70s, in very early parts of the movement, I think circa 1971, maybe early 72, that some devotees started to say that basically Prabhupada is God. There's no difference between Prabhupada and God. And Prabhupada is very, very, very upset with this. And he said, although it sounds like a glorification to say that he is God himself, of course the spiritual master never claims that he is God. He is the representative of God. He is giving the message of God. So non-different in the sense that he is giving the message of Krishna unchanged. He's giving God's message, but he's not God himself. But Prabhupada explained that actually this is a Mayavadi conception, and it's the root of it is actual personal ambition. Prabhupada used those words. The problem here is personal ambition, because if the spiritual master is God, then when I become perfect, then I can also become God. So a small thing of saying, oh, the spiritual master is a servant of God, or the spiritual master is God. Yes, he's not different, he's the same as God. But in terms of the Vaishnava acharyas, we can see that they take these things to be very serious. And actually more serious than we know that the following of the principles, the external activities, avoiding sinful activities, are essential for progress in spiritual life. Otherwise, how you can start a fire pouring water on at the same time? Not possible. But we can see practically that even more important, or that the acharyas take it as more important. And we can see Prabhupada in his dealings in many times was very understanding, or very, sometimes somebody had taken vows to be in the renounced order of life, they couldn't maintain that, and then took to household life. And Prabhupada, if they were well situated, Prabhupada was very encouraging. He was very encouraging of that. But when somebody came with an improper philosophy, he was very very strong. Because the philosophy informs everything, right? Like we said, sambandha abhidaya prayojana. So the sambandha is our philosophy. It's our understanding. It's who's who. What's the identity? Who are we? We are eternal servant of Krishna, or can we become Krishna? What are these kind of things? These philosophy is very, very. It's at the root of everything, right? If you've ever tried to change somebody's mind about something that they're very convinced about, you'll see it's practically impossible. Right? There's that saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. But somebody can change their external activities very quickly. Sometimes we see people that get married, and then the person they marry is of a particular religion. They're straight away, okay, I'll go along with that. Next week they're at church, and I'm a Christian now, or I'm a Catholic, or they marry someone who's vegetarian, and they're very, that person, I'll become vegetarian, fine. Changing the external is not so difficult, right? But changing deep-held belief systems are very, very difficult. Even in a mundane, materialistic sense, when people have a certain belief system due to certain, traumatic experiences, so forth, in childhood, or in early age, it's very, very difficult. You see people who do therapy and try to even on this level of material consciousness and material conditioning, it's very, very difficult to change. So the underlying philosophy is treated as very, very important, very, very important. And sometimes as newer devotees, because we are struggling with our senses, we're struggling trying to follow the process and do everything right. If we see some deviation on that level, we take it very, very seriously. But the advanced Vaishnavas, and we see in Caitanya Caritamrita, not that that's not important, that is important. Lord Chaitanya made it very clear with the pastimes of Junior Haridas, Kala Krishna Das, many, many examples that if you want to be accepted in the association of the followers of Lord Chaitanya, then there's a certain standard of behavior in a society that doesn't disturb the other devotees. But these points of philosophy are very foundational. So as I said, this goes for, I think, another 15, 20 verses maybe, with no purport. Oh, there you go. There's a purport at verse 81. Maybe we'll keep reading then. Oh, does anyone have a question? Otherwise we can read up to verse 81. Then the next class giver will have a verse and a purport. Yes, Ruud, do you have a question? Can we have them? Is this your advocate coming to give the question?
It's the servant.
The servant.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Baba, for the class. Always a delight to listen to you and all your wisdom.
Hare Krishna.
I've heard just in the beginning of the class that you were mentioning about Lord Chaitanya and the Kashmir arguments, discussion about the text. And I've heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong or any of the devotees here, that the reason why he was able to tell all those verses is because he used to pray and connect a lot with Mother Saraswati.
Yep.
And also the reason that then after he lost his voice, in the end of the discussion, it was because Mother Saraswati was like, well, I can't really go against the Lord. So that's why he sort of... I just wondering if you could make any comments on that, please.
Yeah, well, we'll hear that later on in this pastime. You'll literally read that, and you'll see he has a dream, and that's all explained. But in a nutshell, yes, he was a worshipper of Mother Saraswati. She's an energy of the Lord, and through her, Shakti of Vidya, or knowledge, by pleasing her, you get her, Shakti, and therefore he could overcome anybody. But when he came up against the Lord, so the husband of Saraswati, the Lord of Saraswati Devi, then she's like, well, I can't, that's where I get my energy from, so I can't overcome that. That's the source of my energy. You see this, it's like, like somebody might be a very renowned musician or something like that, and they have their musical guru, so they're when they're playing the music on the stage, they're the one that has the potency and everyone's looking. But when their guru comes, then suddenly they're like, oh, he let him play. They don't feel, they cannot manifest that Digvijay potency of the most powerful, potent person in that assembly, because their guru is present. So they're like, well, this is the source of in front of my guru, I can't, that go to him, like that sort of idea. So that's happened. But you'll read all about that here. Yeah. Anything else? We can keep reading. Any other question or comment? Yes, Krishna Bhavana. Yep.
Audible. Sometimes we forget that we're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead in these pastimes, because he presents as just a normal human being, and so even if Mother Saraswati couldn't possibly give him enough to overcome him, she could never meet that. But and she says, I would not stand up to my own husband. I would not go against him.
Yeah, both aspects. She doesn't want to go against him, and she's not going to fight with him, and because she knows she's not going to win. This is the divine opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, different to us. Yeah, but
and she had so many reasons for putting Keshava Kashmiri in that position, because he was such a wonderful devotee of Goddess Saraswati. He was then eligible also for her mercy to give him devotional service. I think this is my humble opinion, because it's a good foundation for progressing, because, well, Mother Saraswati is a pure devotee. And what does she want for her pure devotee? Is devotion to Krishna. So she wanted to bring him humility, humble him, and then show him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those are the other reasons why she... Anyway.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, we'll keep... Should we read 10 more verses, and then we can go to those where there's some more purports there? Say again? Yeah, I know what the time is. I can see I've got a clock here. Yeah. Well, 8 verses divided by 4, that's 30 seconds a verse. Okay, set your stopwatch, Vasu. Let's go. I think it'll be nice, because then the next person that gives class can get into there's purports. Otherwise, there's a lot of verses with no purports. Text 69. if there are 10 literary ornaments in a verse, but even one faulty expression, the entire verse is nullified. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but one spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. And there is a purport to this. The great sage Bharata Muni, on authority of poetic metaphor, has given his opinion in this connection as follows. So, there is a little purport there. I'll leave it there actually, because there is actually a lot in this, especially this verse that we just spoke, so 70. So the next person can give on 70, because this is a very, very important point. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels with one spot of leprosy. And there's a small purport. So whoever's next week, they can go from text number 70. All right, any final thing? Nothing else? Yes, bro. Can you give him the mic?
Just on that point of, you're making the point about people being very stubborn, wanting to change their point of view on things. And I was just thinking of that story that Prabhupada told in relation to how stubborn scientists will be to their ideology. And the story talks about two men on the side of the river, and they were arguing about what to cut something with, whether scissors or a knife, and they're arguing back and forth. And then the man who says to use a knife throws the man who's saying to use the scissors in the river, and then as the man is drowning, he puts his hand up like that to show you use scissors. Probably the scientists will be stubborn like that, even to the point of death. They'll never change their point of view.
You see that with people who followed a certain path, whether it's impersonalism or science or atheism, whatever, like at a certain age, they're just so invested. They've got a certain position in the university or position in their society, and they're so invested, and they're getting, the result of that. So it's just very difficult for them to say, no, all that's wrong, I'm wrong, I'm going to lose all my reputation, lose all my material facilities and everything, and accept this other path. And therefore it's amazing when people do that, like in this Caitanya Caritamrita, we have Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the head of the temple in Puri as an impersonalist scholar and renowned all over India. But then he completely changed to say, no, actually bhakti is the thing. Bhakti, devotion to God, not trying to merge into God. So it puts that into perspective of how, and he was an elderly person already, he was an established person. So, but in general, people are very invested in their life, they have everything, and for them to change is almost impossible.
I was talking about that this morning with Dineshvar, that it's the hardest thing to do in Kali Yuga, to admit you're wrong. No one to say I'm wrong, you're right and I'm wrong.
It's the age of quarrel, right? So
exactly.
You always want to quarrel.
Exactly.
Thank you, thanks for sharing. Okay. All right, Jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.